Can you guys hear me? Um, can you guys hear me? You can type it in the chat. Okay, awesome. I guess we'll wait for some more time so that a few more people join. I'm sorry, I'm I'm new to this as well, so this is my first time doing a live stream as well as doing this tutorial. So I guess I'm gonna be learning with you guys today. It's been a long time since I've done raw HTML myself. I've become used to frameworks like React and Angular, but it's always fun to do raw HTML because you remember where you started from, right? I just wanted to know how many of you have finished freshman, and this is your second time doing this dApp tutorial. And I just want to know out of you guys whose first time it is and who's done it before and just trying to do it again to clear up the concepts. Yeah. Okay. Nice. I also don't know how much lag there is between the live stream and the like me actually talking. So I'm gonna pause sometimes just to give you guys time to type and stuff. But yeah, let's give 2 more minutes for people to join, and then we can get started. I understand a lot of you are already finishing up sophomore, and this is the first track in freshman. So yeah, but it's always fun to learn again. Um, should I play some music or I guess it's fine. We'll start in 2 minutes. Doesn't matter. Oh, I guess I should attach the link for this GitHub in the chat. But yeah, it's also in the description. But if you guys want to follow the tutorial along with me, you can go to this GitHub link, and it basically has all the code and also it has README that you can follow, and it also has code if you aren't able to debug what's happening with your code. So you can have a look at the code here, and yeah, so if you have any problems, do visit this GitHub link and I guess look at the code and see where you're going wrong. But I'll also be coding with you guys today. I guess we'll wait for 2 more minutes, or should we start? We can start. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Sorry, actually, good morning, good evening, whatever time zone you're in. Good morning for me. Today, it's our second live session for LearnWeb3 DAO. It's almost been 1 month, and we're super excited. The last one went really well. Hardik did the last one. It's available on our YouTube. But yeah, today we're going to learn how to create an Ethereum dApp with Ethers.js, Metamask, Remix, and basic HTML and JavaScript. When I first started blockchain, my first ever dApp was creating a voting app. So like when I entered into blockchain, I think the only use case that I could see, and it was back like 3-4 years ago, right? So the only use case I could see was a decentralized voting system for the government, because you know how votes get manipulated and there's like so many things that are happening. I thought it would be really nice that if we could have a decentralized system so that the votes are transparent and there's no party that can manipulate the votes and stuff like that. So when I was starting, that was my first step, and I was very excited to make it. And I started with Profile, basic things that we're going to learn today. But it was so exciting to me to see that this thing nobody else in the world can control, and it runs on its own, that I got interested in blockchain and learning how Web3 works. Because imagine, right, like you have a piece of code that like nobody can control. It's decentralized, so it's pure. It can't be controlled. So we talk about AI like ruling the world and stuff, and blockchain here is solving the complete opposite problem, right? Where it's trying to make us more independent, it's trying to make us more aware of our data, it's trying to make the world more secure, and I guess looking at all those things made me really excited about blockchain. At that time, AI was at a very big boom, and blockchain was nothing, right? Everybody was dumping Ether. Ether was like, I guess, $90. And I remember like I was choosing my career between AI and blockchain, but I just fell in love with this technology and how what it brings to the table, right? It's not about programming. It's about knowing why blockchain is so powerful. It's powerful because it gives the user it gives the power back to the user, instead of these big corps and big governments and so many other things. So I see the power in blockchain. So let's get started with creating your first Ethereum dApp with Ethers.js. Back then we used to use Web3.js, but Ethers.js, I remember like during my first internship, I was writing tests for Ethers.js. So I was basically like, it was a very new library, and my first job as an intern was to write tests for all these functions. And I was like, wow, this is so amazing, right? What this library can do. Web3.js was not that good. So yeah, I remember my first job as an intern was to write tests for Ethers.js at Metamask, back at Metamask. Talking about Metamask is like, this was my first internship and my first entry gate into blockchain. I have worked here at Metamask, and it's like an Ethereum wallet. Wallets are an easy way for you to interact with blockchain. There is a lot going on behind, and So if you need an easy way to, sign your transactions, to send Ether, to like interact with dApps, you need something, right? Everybody is not a developer. You can't just keep coding of everything. So there needs to be an interface. There needs to be a UI so that people can interact with, and basically interact with the blockchain. So to interact with the blockchain, to send transactions, to sign transactions, to interact with dApps, you need a wallet. And Metamask is one of the most common ones. So yeah, go ahead and download this if you haven't. If this is your first time getting started, this would help you to interact with whatever we're going to do next, send transactions and everything. So I would suggest, like, if you haven't done this, you can do it. If you have other wallets, that's fine too. But we would be using MetaMask for this one because it's very friendly, and honestly, I love the people working at MetaMask. They were the first ones. They were one of the first ones to believe in blockchain. So yeah, download MetaMask. I guess I should put up a link for this in the chat for people who want to download this. Okay. So after you've downloaded MetaMask, our next step is to also have Remix. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about what Remix is, but when I first looked at it, I was like, what is this? It's a complicated software and it doesn't have a good UI, and what is happening? But when you move down, like when you go deeper into blockchain, you'll realize Remix is actually really nice. But when you first look at it, you're like, it's not that good, but it is good, believe me. When you go further down, it's gonna really help you. Especially when I was working at one of my companies, they didn't allow me to install Hardhat or Truffle or anything like that. The only thing I could use was Remix because I wasn't allowed to download any external software. So yeah, it's a very friendly tool. So I'm gonna attach the link for this in the chat as well. We're gonna be using Remix. And the last one is Ethers.js. So as you know, like I was talking about, you need to send transactions, you need to sign transactions, you need something which can interact with the blockchain, right? So what does that? Who does that? Like there has to be some libraries so that which can help us interact with the blockchain. And that's what Ethers.js is. It's a library for you to interact with the blockchain. Metamask also internally uses Ethers.js, but it also provides a layer of UI on top of Ethers.js, so you don't have to like code up everything. It does everything for you. It predicts the gas, it predicts everything. But if you're a programmer and you don't want to use Metamask, feel free to use Ethers.js, but don't do that. I won't suggest you. Don't reinvent the wheel. So Ethers.js is basically to send transactions, to interact with the contract, to interact with the blockchain in general. So I'm going to be putting this link as well for people to have a look at the documentation. Basically it does a lot of things. I talked about interacts with the API, and yeah, like there's a full documentation here on how to use Ethers.js, and feel free to give it a read whenever you have a little bit more time. It's an amazing library. I suggest. Okay, so now that we have all the tools ready, what are we going to do? We're going to create a basic HTML page. We're going to create a smart Solidity contract, and we're going to connect those two. So consider smart contract as a backend which runs on blockchain, and HTML page as the front end, which is going to interact with the contract using Ethers.js. So there's the HTML page, which is going to send requests to the smart contract using Ethers.js, and then smart contract is going to store the state like any other backend does in the blockchain. So consider smart contract as your backend, Ethers.js as like an a tool, like a library which connects the two, and HTML page, like, the normal front end that you see on the page every day. So we downloaded Metamask. Okay, so what is Testnet Ether? I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this, but there are many testnets. So there's Rinkeby, there's Cohen, there's Ropsten, and these are all Ethereum testnets. And why are testnets needed is because, okay, you can't just keep deploying to prod. I know people say test and prod, but you can't really do that in blockchain, right? You need some place where you can test your new functionalities that are getting added to the blockchain every day. So you need a testnet. So Ropsten is a testnet, Rinkeby is a testnet, Cohen is a testnet. It doesn't really matter which one you use. Everything is fine. I'm going to be using Ropsten this time. Even though, like, later on in our software mode track, I just use Rinkeby because it's easier to get funds. Ropsten these days is behaving a little bit wacky. It's not there. You can't find. It's very hard to find testnet Ether on Ropsten. But let's just try and hope we can find it. Okay, so I'm gonna attach this link in the chat so that you guys can actually go ahead and get Ether. I'm gonna do that myself so that I'm gonna be I can do this with you guys. Give me 1 second. This one doesn't have Metamask installed. Alright, so here this Chrome window I have a Metamask installed, so I'm gonna be going to this link. And here, so you go like this, and if your Metamask is logged in, see, okay, so it is not connected. I'm gonna just refresh so that it becomes connected. Anyways, I don't think it needs the connection. So yeah, go to the Ropsten testnet. Okay, so just switch to Ropsten. Don't go to Rinkeby because we don't want to use this ones. But yeah, you can see like how many testnets there exist, right? Like there exists Cohen, Rinkeby, Gorilla. So these are all like different kinds of different types of tests, like different types of ways to run blockchain that people are testing. But yeah, today we're going to be using Ropsten. So yeah, copy your address. So you can just click on this and it's going to copy it for you. I don't have any Rinkeby. I guess I'm going to shift to this one. And then I'm going to copy this and paste the address here and click this and send. Awesome. So it takes some time, so if it doesn't show up in your wallet, don't freak out. It's going to take some time, but when it shows a success status here, it means that you have Ropsten Ether now. So yes, you see my balance increased. I received some Ether here. Awesome. This is amazing. Do we have any questions in the chat? Sorry, I'm just gonna see. Do we have any questions? Okay, we don't have any questions. Sorry about this. Okay, so I'm gonna go open this here because I don't have Metamask installed on that Chrome browser. Okay, so now we have some Ether. So where were we? Okay, yeah. So now we have some Ether. Go ahead and request some Ether, and we did this. If that doesn't work, you can try this one, but I think it's working, so you should be fine. Now it's time for us to install an HTTP server. So HTTP servers are, I see a lot of students having questions about what light server is. So I'm gonna be like explaining what light server is here. Oh, I see a question in the chat. So different testnet networks are for different purposes, or can they all be used for the same thing? Like from the user perspective, yes, they can be used for the same thing. But what they basically are trying to do is they're trying to test different ways for us to optimize blockchain. So like you can have a testnet which implements proof of stake. You can have a testnet which basically implements a new kind of like, consensus algorithm altogether. So different testnets are like trying different ways we can implement a blockchain. From the user's perspective, we really don't care because all we're doing is like we're sending transactions and we don't care how the consensus algorithm is working behind the scenes. That's why it doesn't really matter which testnet you're going to use, because we don't really care about how the consensus is working or how the blockchain is actually mining the blocks. All we care about is sending the transaction and storing our data on chain. So it doesn't really matter which chain it is. But for people who are actually developing Ethereum, who are like actually developing the consensus algorithm, those who are actually implementing the sharding, they need testnets to see if it actually works. And that's why these different testnets are developed mostly. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, there's a lag in the live stream, but I hope you did. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so we're going to learn about what an HTTP server is. I hope, if you have learned like basic programming, you know what a server is. It's basically used to host, to run your code, right? So to run your code on the browser, you need a server, or to run the code on any like machine you need a server to run the code. So HTTP server is basically a server which runs on HTTP, and it's basically gonna host our web page and help us, interact with the web page. So you need to install npm for you to run the light server. And to do that, you have to go here. I think this link is outdated. You need to install Node.js, not this. Okay, yeah, no. So you don't need to install npm. You need to install Node.js. And Node.js downloads npm for you. So npm comes when you install Node.js automatically. It has npm inside it, so you don't have to worry about it. I'm gonna put up a link for this here so that you go ahead and download Node.js. Don't download npm. Now I see why everyone was getting confused on this, because the link is wrong. Yeah, now I see why everybody was like, I can't install Node.js, npm. So you don't have to install npm. You have to install Node.js. There are all the options there, so just go ahead and download it. I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to download it, but you can go ahead and do it. Okay. So, okay. Now, this thing, so now we're going to install the light server, right? And we're going to use npm for this, because light server is an npm package. So this link that was put up, you can actually search for it, and it's here. This is the package we're installing. So see, it says npm I light server, and it talks about what it does and everything. So yeah, so we're going to be using this today as our package. It allows you to run the node server and everything. And yep, so we're going to use npm and we're going to install it globally. And to install it, to run this command, you need to use a terminal or a command prompt. Don't use git bash, or don't use like PowerShell, because students have been having problems with using git bash or PowerShell. So I'm not sure what's happening, and I don't use Windows, so I can't really debug. But yeah, don't use that. Use command prompt. It's gonna help you. So I'm gonna open up item. This is what I use. Right. I'm gonna leave this. Okay. So let me go and create a new folder. So you can go anywhere. I have this developer folder on my Mac that I use. Yep. So I'm gonna be creating a new folder here. Yeah. So first, let's install. Yeah, you can open up your command prompt or terminal and point anywhere. You can point to desktop or anywhere. Like, this is just a folder I have inside my thing. You don't need to be here. But yeah, so this command is going to go ahead and globally install light server for you. I already have it installed, but I'm just doing it so that you guys can. Oh, okay, yeah. For Linux users, yeah, please install using sudo. Okay, so cool. So it gets downloaded. Don't worry about the warnings here. Doesn't really matter. There are a lot of npm packages which have a lot of warnings, so it's okay. So I'm going to create a directory, and I'm using a terminal to create a directory. So this is called mkdir, which is make directory. You don't have to do this. You can just go and create a new folder inside your using VS Code or using your operating system, but I'm just used to the terminal, so I'm just creating a directory here called, I'm gonna name this dApp tutorial, but yeah, you can name it whatever you want, and doesn't again really matter. And I'm entering this repository. Again, I'm doing it using a terminal. You don't need to do it. You can use anything you want, like VS Code or Sublime or any other text editor, and just go inside this directory. And now I'm just going to do code dot. I'm going to use VS Code here. So yeah, again, you can use any text editor you want, like anything you want, Sublime or anything you want, should be good. Alright, so now comes the real part. The real part is writing the code up, right? We will be writing an index.html file, so just go ahead and create an index.html file inside your dApp tutorial folder, and you just write basic HTML here. So HTML body tag. Cool. This is like basics, so I'm pretty sure each one of us has learned a little bit basic HTML. I'm gonna say this is Snae's first dApp. You can write your own name, but I just want to make it fancy. This step is not there in the tutorial. I'm just messing around here. But yeah, here we are gonna set up some mode. All right. So this tutorial is basically going to allow you to set mood and get mood. So you can set a mood of a contract. You can say what mood you are in, and it's going to tell you. And when you do get mood, it's going to tell you what mood you're in. It's like a basic dApp. So yeah. And let's add it. So h1 tag is like to add headers, p is for paragraphs, label is like, for creating a label for your app, like what app is this? This is a dApp app. Oh, sorry, yeah, so this label is for, okay, let me just finish up the code and then I can explain what's happening. Okay, so I wrote a basic body tag here. So this is the header. So this is like a header of my body. And I said, this is my first app. Then I wrote a small paragraph about what we're going to do. This is the label for my input tag. So this is my input tag, which is going to take a type text, which is going to be my mood. And it's going to set this mood to this ID. And yeah, so label input this inside this input tag. So, and it's going to take type text. You can also make it type number, but because mood is a string, let's take it to a string and not an emoji right now. But yeah, we're going to type some text in the input field. Okay, so now we're going to create a div and we're going to create a button. So this is to be get mood. Alright, I have these autocomplete features, so that's why it sometimes finishes up the code for me. But yeah, so this is the input tag. These are like two buttons. Div is just to indicate that this is one block of code. And inside this block of code, I have this button, which is to get the mood. So on click, it's going to call this function called as getMood, and this is the name of the button. Similarly, like on click, this button is going to call a function called as setMood, and it's going to set the mood. All right, so I guess we have some code ready here. I'm going to be using this terminal inside this, but inside my VS Code, but you can use CMD or whatever you wish. It's up to you. Alright, so it started a browser and we can see it here. So if you go to localhost 3000, here you go, see, yay. Okay, see, even I get happy. I've made so many dApps, but this is always fun. Writing basic HTML. Yeah, so I have two functions and this is amazing. So it's done. Now now it's time for us to write any smart contract. Alright, yeah, there are no questions. Hopefully I'm doing a good job, but yeah, so this is easy, right? Like, don't worry, everybody's scared of writing code, but look at how easy this is, right? It's plain English. It's not hard. Don't listen to the naysayers. It's easy to write code, guys. It is. It really is. Everybody tries to freak you out, but no. When I was young, like everybody used to be like, no, programming is this, programming is that, you can't do it. I'm like, nah, I'll just do it and see what happens. Okay, see, I already have this function, but I'm gonna I already have this contract, but let me just create a new one. I'm not going to look at this. Okay, cool. I'm going to name this contract mood.sol. Even though this is, the common convention is to name it uppercase. That's the good way of doing it, but our tutorial somehow, for some reason, has this in lowercase, so let's just keep it in lowercase. And now we're going to specify the license. Oh, yeah, and by the way, this is the remix I was talking about. We're going to write the contract here. Okay. So MIT license. What is MIT license? I didn't know about this, and why is this such a complicated, why do we have to write this? So MIT is that it is open source, so anybody can use your contracts code. It's to help other people learn and just to spread the word, right? And for other people to learn from your code. So you can specify this license, and this basically means that anybody can use your code. And then we're going to specify the Solidity version and 0.8. Let's just say 4. Yeah, and okay, one more cool thing. I'm not sure if you guys know about it because it's not there in the tutorial. What does this mean, right? What does this thing here mean? It actually means anything higher than 0.8.4. So, like, if, like, this should work with any other, like, if another contract tries to import it and it has a version which is higher than this, it's going to be fine. But it can't, the other contract which is importing this, if it has a version lesser than this, that's not going to work. It needs a version higher than this, right? So yeah, that's what it means. And it also means that if you have a compiler which is higher than this and it supports this interface, it's going to work. Basically, it means that. Yeah, I didn't know what this means when I started. So I'm just letting you know. And this is a way of specifying the version in Solidity. You need to specify a Solidity version because Solidity is really new. And there are so many things happening that every version is very different from the other version. Like if you look at 0.8.10, it has changed almost like everything. And I have to go back and basically learn everything from scratch. And it's kind of sad though, but blockchain is really new. So this is my mood diary. Yay. So I'm going to be putting up my mood on the blockchain. And this is how you specify the name of the contract. So the contract name is mood diary. Again, it's a good practice that you keep it uppercase. Yeah, don't keep it lowercase. It's just a good practice. It's a good way of writing code. Yeah, let's just put it like that. So now we need a variable, right, which is going to track our mood. And because we said our mood is going to be a string, let's just specify it as a string, right? Strings are basically used for a variable number of text. You can use bytes 32, but then you would be restricted to 32 bytes. It's beneficial for sometimes to use bytes 32 if you want to if you want to save space. So yeah, if you want to save space, try to make sure that you use bytes 32 or something lesser. If you know that your mood is not going to be like a huge string, right? Like you're venting your mood out now, then you can use bytes 32. But if you don't know about the length of the string, then you can use string. But saving space on the contract is a good practice, and yeah, it's also efficient and cost effective. So if you can, do it. It's good practice. So now we need two functions. So we need a function to set mood, right? So we need a function to set mood, and we need a function to get mood, right? we wrote two functions on our frontend, get mood and set mood, and now we need to basically go ahead and create these two functions in our contract. So this is going to set mood, and this is going to get mood. Do we have any questions? So then, no, the above version, this version is also included. Sorry if I messed up here, but yeah, this version and anything above this is supported. Yeah, greater than or equal. Yeah, okay. So that was the question. So yeah, this version is also obviously supported, and anything above this is also included. Okay, if that's clear, let's move to like what this function really does, right? Okay, string memory underscore mood. I'm gonna explain what this is doing and why is this such a weird syntax. It took me a lot of time to understand this myself, so let's see if you guys understand what I'm trying to say here, but let's see. Okay, I haven't done this dApp tutorial, honestly. The reason why I have this contract on my remix is because I was trying to debug it for someone. He had some questions, so this is my first time doing it as well. That's why I'm finding bugs, right? I found the npm bug. But yeah, okay. We have our two functions ready, and they look very weird. They're not as easy as the HTML, right? What is this? Why is this so weird? Okay, let's try to understand it. So function is like used to define the function. Set mode is the name of the function. The anything that's inside the brackets is the first set of brackets. Okay, there are two sets of brackets, one, and this is the second one. So this is the first one. So first one is the input parameter. So what's the input that it's going to take? And public means that you can call it from outside by any other contract, or you can call it by, Remix or Ethers.js or anything. So any external entity can call this function. That's why it's public. It's accessible to everything, and public also signifies that it would be included in the interface, ABI. So ABI is application binary interface. So it's going to be included in the interface because anybody can call it, right? If it was a private function, this would have not been included in the ABI because you can't call a private function from outside, right? So that's why it's not included in the ABI. Only the public functions or the functions which can be called externally are included in the ABI. So your ABI is not going to change if you add a private function. I used to make this rookie mistake. Every time I used to add a private function, I used to go ahead and again copy the ABI and put it back, and you don't need to do that. If you're adding a private function, you don't need to like copy your ABI again and put it back in your front, right? Public functions are not included in the ABI for those who know what an ABI is. Okay, I know some people don't know what an ABI is, so I'll restrict my conversation here. But what public really means is like external entity can call it. Private means the contract functions can call it. This is object-oriented programming, and that's how like JavaScript or many languages do this, right? So it's not very new to Solidity. Oh, and one thing I missed. So this memory thing, right? Why do we use memory for this, and why do we not use memory for, if you have done Solidity, why don't we use memory for integers or anything like that? Well, again, the reason is because strings can be arbitrary, right? So if you use bytes 32, your contract already knows it's going to take 32 bytes. So you don't need memory for that, right? You can store it in stack, okay? Stack is, I'm not sure if you guys know about it, but stack is like a data structure which helps you store data. And there is a heap. So there are two types of data structures, stack and heap. And stack is for variables which have a fixed length, okay? So like, for example, integers, bytes 32, bytes, like every kind of bytes, right? Byte 64, 128, then anything that has a fixed length can be stored inside the stack. And the compiler already knows the memory location where it's going to be stored and everything, and it knows how to manage it. But for arbitrary length of things, like for example strings or arrays, like your function doesn't know how big your string is going to be, right? Maybe someone is in a bad mood and now wants to write, a big para on how his mood is. So your contract doesn't know, right? So it's arbitrary. So strings are arbitrary. Arrays, like sometimes you can have arrays which are of like very big length, right? And you don't know exactly the length. That's why it's suggested in programming to have a fixed length array, because then your contract, if you have fixed length arrays, then it becomes predictable for your contract, and then it's easy, right? They can store it on the stack. But otherwise, they have to they have to store it in the heap, and storing it in the heap is a little bit, it's a different process for the compiler. And it's basically to store arbitrary length, and it's very unpredictable, and it doesn't know what's going to happen. It can't predict what's going to happen. So yeah, it's not fast. It is slower than storing it on stack. Storing it on stack is fast because it already knows how much length you're going to take. It already can allocate the memory on the stack and do everything predefined. So yeah, that's why it's if you already know, just try to minimize, make the program more efficient by making it fixed length arrays or fixed length strings by using bytes 32 or any other, by making it fixed length, so that, or by using constants, right? Like constants don't they don't require memory keyword, and yeah, so they are also very efficient because again your contract knows what it's doing, so it can do it fast. But for strings and arrays, it has to do it at the runtime, and it's slower. I hope that makes sense. It's like I don't know if you guys have any questions. Yep. Okay, I don't see any questions, so alright. I hope I'm not confusing you guys. But this is the reason why we use this memory keyword. We are like, we want to use the heap, and we want to do it inside this function. Please let us do it. Okay. Please let us do this. Okay, so that's why we are using it. We're saying this is for any arbitrary data structure. We specify this memory keyword. There's another one which is storage, but we'll not get into that right now because you guys would learn this in the Solidity chapter later on in sophomore. But let's just restrict ourselves to memory right now. Memory is for this function. While this is executing, please use the heap. Please use the variable data structure and do it for me, okay? So yeah. All right, awesome. So now we have these two functions, and yay, we have our first contract ready. Who's excited? I'm very excited. I'm always excited writing smart contracts. It's so much fun. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and compile this. So so you were writing your contract in this tab, right? This file looking like icon, and you had this mood.sol. You have to go to this icon which has these recycling bin kind of like icon, and you just gotta click here and you gotta select a version. Language is Solidity, compiler is default. Okay, what am I missing here? Oh, I'm missing a semicolon. Yep. Yes. PD is not provided. Okay. Before we consider a comment, I did provide it. I don't know why it's not identifying it. SPDX. Sometimes Remix behaves strange. What's happening here? Oh, okay. I think there was a spelling mistake. Never mind. Okay, nice. So, all right. So, yeah. Oh, also the magic, right? See, 0.8.7 here, right? And this was 0.8.4. And it combined. Boom. So, yep. And we can try with 0.8.4 as well. It's a little bit slower. What is happening? Oh, okay, see, it combined with 0.8.4 as well. So, boom. I'm sorry if I'm I'm moving a little bit slower, but I hope you guys are understanding. That's the main goal. It's to understand what's happening here. So, okay, so now we have this, we have the ABI, we have the bytecode, and it's good, it's working, right? So, what is ABI, right? It's asking me to copy this thing. What is this? Like, so I was talking about this thing, right? This ABI thing, it's application binary interface. So, what are interfaces? Interfaces are a way such that you can express your contract, or like in Web2 world, you can express your classes in a smaller, compact way. So it doesn't need your entire logic, like how your set mood function is actually setting the mood, or how your get mood function is actually trying to get the mood. No, it doesn't need the logic. The only thing it needs is the function definition. So this is the function definition. This is a function definition. Right? So it needs only the function definition, so that when external parties try to call this function, they know how to call it. That's what its uses, right? They need to know how to call your function, and that's why it only includes the public functions, right? Or the functions which are can be called by external parties. That's why it only includes it's the public ones, or the ones which can be called by external parties. That's what the use of ABI is, to let the external parties know how to call the function, not what's inside the function. They don't give a they don't care what's inside, how you're like setting the mood, right? Like you don't care how the blockchain is working. You don't care like how the consensus is working. All you need to do is call the function so that your job gets done, right? So similarly, that's what ABI does for you. Like it lets the external parties know how to call this function, and that's why it only includes these function definitions. We'll see later on as we go ahead how this works. Right. Awesome. I hopefully think this makes sense. I think one more thing I missed about this view keyword, right? So I forgot to explain this. So public, I explained. What is view? View is for functions which don't change the state of the contract. So like this, you are changing the state of the contract because you are setting this variable mood with this variable underscore mood. But here you're just returning it, right? You're not setting anything, you're not changing the state of the contract. You're not changing the mood. So you're just returning it. So then you can use view. And again, that is more, it doesn't require gas. That's why you should use gas. That's why you should use view. Because it doesn't require gas, and then because your contract already knows what it has to do, right? So it already knows its state. It doesn't have to do any computation. That's why it doesn't require gas. Only things which require computation require gas. So do view and it returns the string. That's why it says returns. And then this is like the type of the code the variable you're returning. That's why after returns you type this kind of variable you're returning. So I'm returning a string which is of memory type. Now if this function was private, so I have a question. So someone is asking, now if this function was private, the ABI wouldn't be able to call it. No, ABI is just an interface, right? So it doesn't do the calling. The external party does the calling. ABI is just, it gives you the syntax, right? That can be used to call the function. So ABI has nothing to do with calling the function. The external parties call the function and they use the ABI for an easy way to call the function, because ABI already gives them, the function definition. So they just have to call the set mood, specify what the mood they are in, and that's it. If the external party wants, they can also call the functions which are not there in ABI, but let's not go there. It's a little bit more like internal stuff, but ABI just is an easy way. ABI doesn't call the function basically, and private functions can be only called by the contract itself or any contract which is inheriting this contract. So if you're inheriting this contract, again you can access the private variables, but you can't do it using external contracts or by external parties. ABI has nothing, has no relation to being able to call it. ABI is just a way. It's just an easy interface for people to be able to call the functions basically. Yes, reading from the blockchain is free, writing to the blockchain costs gas, right? And why it costs gas is because you have to basically do processing. Processing involves electricity and it involves costs. But reading is you don't need to do any processing. That's why it's free. It doesn't require gas. ABI is like a workflow, right? ABI is like a workflow. I don't understand the exact question here, but yeah, if you can explain that a little further, what you meant. But yeah, Abbas is right. It's just an interface. Oh, okay. Vatsal is asking, how can we create a private variable? This is a private variable. So anything that doesn't have a public keyword to it, it means it's private. So I guess I can show it to you, right? So look at this ABI. It doesn't have the variable here. So it doesn't have the mood variable. It only has the two functions, that is the get mood and the set mood. It doesn't have the mood variable because it's private. It doesn't come in the ABI. I hope that you guys understand what I'm trying to say here. You have any questions? It's basically see, the get mode function is here and the set mode function is here, and we don't have that, and it tells you that it's a function. For the get mode, it also tells you that it's a view function. It tells you the outputs. So like the output type was string, so it specifies the type here. This didn't have any output because it was only setting the mood, so this is an empty array. The name, it specifies the name, it specifies the input it requires. So basically it tells the external party how to call this function. So hey, I have this function named setMood. It's not going to return you anything. It's non-payable and it requires these inputs. So please call me using this, right? And then I have this getMood function. I don't require any inputs. I'll give you this output, and I am a view function, so I don't need a signer. I don't need any. I don't need like gas basically. That's what it means. All right. What is the use of the public variable? To specify that it's public and that it can be used by external parties, or that it would come in the API. Basically, that's what it means. Is it like, do you guys understand the API a little better now? I know it's gonna get better as you go ahead and learn more blockchain, but this is the basics of it. All right, I don't see any more questions. So, okay, let's go ahead and deploy this contract. So how to deploy this contract? So go to the environment and select injected Web3. Okay. Why? Because we want to use this wallet that we already have, and we don't have any local chain running. So we're going to use this injected Web3, which is injected by Metamask. So Metamask injected this Web3 for us. How do I? So you see these warnings, right? This is because Metamask injected Web3, right? They injected Web3 into this browser, and that's why you can use it. That's what injected Web3 means. I didn't used to understand this before, and I used to make this mistake all the time. But if you wanna use Metamask as your UI, you have to select injected Web3. If you have your own chain running, then you can use other things and basically other ways of doing it. But right now I'm just going to be using the simple Metamask here because it gives me a good UI and everything. So it's good for me. It's good for learning the basics. Cool. All right. So gas limit, nothing here really matters. Just keep it to defaults. Just select this. Make sure you have an account here. Make sure you have some Ether in it, and boom. Let's go. Let's deploy this. Awesome. See, it's already calculating the fees. It has this data. It is a contract deployment. Boom, it automatically does everything for you, right? So amazing what it can do. You can also edit the gas fees, but yeah, and you can change it to low, medium, high. I'm not going to change it because I really don't care. It's testnet. So actually I should just make it high. Okay, right, all right. And you're going to learn about what these are. Hardik has written a very good tutorial on what gas is, what priority fees is, gas limit is, max fees is in sophomore. So you will learn all this, and you should learn it. It's amazing how they've done this. When I was learning blockchain 3 years ago, we didn't have this. We didn't have the concept of max priority fee and everything. So it's just amazing how much they have changed it. and then you can click confirm. Alright, then it closes the pop-up, but if you go here, it does say pending, and if you go, you can click on this and it's going to take you to Etherscan, and as I mentioned, wait for it, right, until the status is successful. It's really slow, but it's okay. Blockchain has many other benefits. We can suffer a little bit. Alright. Alright. Awesome. Yes, it's going to get better with you too. You guys are right. But yeah, okay. So our contract is deployed. And it also says, see, contract created. Awesome, right? Such a good UI. I know it's a little bit nerdy, but it says. So if this says it's an address, it's not a contract, guys. I see some people like sending me addresses and it says like, it just says it's an address, then you're basically sending me the wrong address. It should say it's a contract. And yeah. And how to detect it's a contract is a very cool thing, and we're going to learn it in senior how to actually hack it as well. But let's just stay to the basics right now. All right. Yay. So when it's deployed, it's going to give you this tick mark here. So it tells you everything, right? So it tells you from, to, the gas, the transaction cost, like how much gas it took, the hash, the transaction hash, the input, the decoding input, because we didn't give them any inputs. There's no logs. And yeah, so it basically gives you everything. Don't feel scared looking this up. I know some people are like, what is this? Don't worry, it's very simple. It's the basics. Just go to the basics. All right. So then you can click on this here. And you can set the mood here. I'm going to say good, right? My mood is good. And I'm going to set the mood. Again, because this is a write transaction, it's going to require gas, right? It's going to require gas because you need to do some computation. You need to set the variable in the heap I was talking about. So the contract has to do some computation. The miners have to do some computation. So it requires gas. You need to pay them, right, for doing all this for you. So I'm again going to wait. And this time I'm not going to go to Etherscan. I'm just going to see when it becomes confirmed. Oh, so you're asking how can we publish code to Etherscan? I'm gonna release a tutorial on this soon, but I would not suggest you to manually do it using the UI they have. You should do it using Hardhat. Hardhat has docs on it. So there's basically something called as Hardhat Etherscan. Etherscan. Scam, not scam. Alright. Yeah, so it has a lot of functions, and you can just like write some piece of code and it says verify. So it's gonna help you verify the contract automatically, and you don't have to manually do it. I won't suggest you do it manually because nobody really does that, okay? Because their UI is really bad. I just use Hardhat. But you'll learn when you go to the higher versions, and I'm planning on releasing a tutorial for this soon, so don't worry about it. You'll learn. But yeah, use Hardhat if you have time. Learn how to verify it using Hardhat. Don't do it manually. Okay, awesome. So I see my transaction is successful. and mind and executions executed from set mode string. See, it does everything here. It also say decodes my input and it does everything. Awesome. Now I can just call get mood and yes, I have it, right? I have my mood. It's good. Um, and um, and it didn't pop up Metamask. Why did it not pop up my Metamask? Because contract already knows, right? It doesn't need to do any transaction. It doesn't need to do any processing. It knows what state it is in, right? So miners can just like they don't have to do anything. They don't have to do any processing. They don't have to store any memory. So it's easy for them to give it to you. So it's already there. It's already there. So you just the I have the mood now. Awesome. So I hope this is the part related to contract. And now I'm gonna be like moving towards doing all this using these two functions here. If you have any questions, please let me know. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna give you guys some seconds to ask any questions if you had. All right. Actually, I can just move ahead. All right. I'm gonna delete this. I don't need this. All right. Okay. So now I have this HTML file. Let's go back to this and make it work through this code. I don't want to go to remix and click these buttons. I want to click my buttons and get everything, right? So let's do that now. Let's use my functions to write the code. Awesome. Okay. So okay. I hope nobody has any questions. All right. Okay, so how do we write code in JavaScript? We use in HTML. We use script. Script is like, you know, how people keep talking about scripts. Yes, this is what scripts are, and we're gonna basically write a script to debug this. Okay, to write the code for this. So in the script tag, you need to include this code here. I'm not going to type it out, and I'm going to share it with you because this doesn't have any logic. What it basically does is like it tells you what type of the source file is. This is just the minified version of the Ethers.js library. So Ethers.js library in this small code. So everything here, all the functions and everything, they just put it in the small file, and yeah, you can see, right? So what we're doing is we're just saying that hey, we're gonna be using this thing which is already there, and we're just gonna be using the Ethers.js library. I can put the code here. You can just copy this. This has no logic in it. And this is not exciting, right? It's not that exciting. Okay. Now let's write another script tag which basically helps us write our code, right? Okay. So we're gonna first say window.3m. Okay. Okay, awesome. So I wrote some code. Okay, so one person is asking a question about is better than using npm for Ethers.js. Well, no, but the reason why we're using this is because we don't have a package.json, we don't have anything here. We just want to write some basic, simple HTML. We don't want to install any dependencies, we don't want to do anything. So we just want to like write simple code, right? And CDN is like very basic. It's very basic. It's not anything you have to install, anything you need. You can just write a script tag and it's going to work, right? It doesn't need anything from your side. It just works. That's the beauty about basics, right? It just works. So it just works. That's why we're just using it. Later on, when we become more super shadowy coders, we probably use the npm version of it. But this just works. The script tag, you use it, it works on the browser. You don't need any dependencies for it. That's why it's better to just use it for basics. So what are we doing here? So enable, right? This code here, what is it doing? It's looking at the window.ethereum.enable, and what is this? This is the injected Web3 I was talking about. This is the Ethereum, this is the Ethers.js and everything that's in my window right now, like injected Web3 that I was talking about. So it's going to detect if I have a wallet or Metamask or anything there which already exists on my browser window. Use that instance, get that instance, right? That's what Remix was also doing, and that's what we're doing. We're figuring out, hey, does this person have any browser already installed? Sorry, not browser. Does this browser already have a wallet installed? And so that's what it does, right? Like it checks if my browser already has a wallet or any other source for Ethers.js, and it just figures it out. And then, boom, magic, right? So then we have an Ethers instance because of this line and because of the code we added here. So it figured out there's a wallet. Now we have an interface. We have a function definitions that Ethers provides us. And we also have a wallet, which is going to help us like connect with the blockchain. So using the instance of all the functions that I showed you here, I'm going to call one function known as providers, and I'm not going to create a Web3 provider for me. And what is this Web3 provider going to be? This is going to be my Metamask. So Web3.currentProvider is going to be my Metamask, right? And that's what it does. So this figures out this, and this function I can call because I use this. So this had all the function definitions, so I was able to call this, and this figured out, hey, this person has a wallet, so I can get the current provider. And provider is going to help us to interact with the blockchain. It's creating this Web3 instance which tells you, okay, we are using Metamask and we are using Ropsten, and boom, and it packs it up in something called as the provider. Okay, amazing. Now we need the contract. I hope you guys understand this, but let's move to the address. To get the address, you just have to go to your Remix and click on this 0x thing, right? It's gonna pop like this, and then you just paste it here. And for the ABI, we had our ABI here, so just copy this, and you can paste it here. Okay, amazing, right? And I'm gonna just shorten this. I hope you guys understand. So VS Code has this feature where you can minimize your code. So I have the signer, I have everything, and I already explained what's inside this, right? The get mode and the set mode, and what it's doing. So I'm not gonna waste time here. And now I'm gonna write another function which is going to help me used my provider, right? So now I have to use my provider. So provider dot list accounts. You can write this with me, and then I can explain it to you. Sometimes it's just good to like blankly copy and then go back and see, oh, what did I copy? I do that. I'm learning this along with you guys. I've not done this tutorial before, so let's see. Ethers.contract, mode contract address, right, awesome, mode contract ABI, and my signer. Okay, amazing. And async. Mode. I'm going to also explain a little bit JavaScript here, because I know you're like, many people don't know JavaScript a lot, and I think I got motivated because Casey really believes in the power of beginners, and I have been really motivated by him. So I've really made sure that I make tutorials that everybody can understand, and not just people who are really good at programming, because it doesn't make sense, right? We live in a world where we're all beginners at something or the other, so why not? And I was also inspired by Hard. They have really good beginner friendly tutorials, so yeah, it's always, whenever you're making tutorials or anything, it's good you make it beginner friendly. It helps everyone. Okay, I'm writing a lot of code here, but it's okay. We're gonna understand this. All right. Okay, so I have these two functions here. What is this doing, right? So I created this provider which told me that I'm connected to Metamask and I have this network option. So this provider has this information in it. So now, because it's connected to Metamask, it can get all my accounts, right? And that's what it's doing. It's getting the accounts, and then from that, in an async way, I can get the accounts, and I can get the first account. So the first account I'm connected to, just get that and convert it to a signer. So get the signer out of the accounts, because I want to sign my transaction. I want to sign and say, okay, this is my account that is sending the the set mood function. I am the account, I am the address who wants to set the mood, right? So that's why to tell the contract who is calling the contract to sign the transaction that this is me signing the contract, right? Like how you do it in real life. That's what it's doing. It's like, okay, get my accounts, and from that get my signer. And now create an instance of the contract, and how it's doing it, like see how beautiful it is. It's getting the address. So it's getting the address here, which we copied from Remix, that Remix gave you, this ABI, right? So now it's going to create this contract instance, and how it's going to know that it's your contract is using this address and this ABI and this signer, and it creates this instance of the contract which now has all the information. It knows the address to which your contract is deployed to, the ABI, which is like the functions that your contract has, and the signer that's going to send the transaction. So it's beautiful, right? It's basically doing everything for you. So you don't have to do anything. You just have to tell it, okay, I have this, I have this, I have this. Like a lazy programmer, right? It's basically going to do everything for you in the backend and figure out and create this instance for you, which is beautiful, right? And then boom, like I create a function and I can just do get mood. Why can I just do get mood by doing this? It's because my API told me, right? This get mood function, that's how it knows that. That's how it knows that this contract has this get mood function. And then this is just the JavaScript format of creating async functions. This means that your program can work asynchronously. This means you can do multiple things at the same time. You don't have to wait for get mood to set another mood. You can do multiple things all together. And your contract doesn't have to wait for this function to complete, but you can also wait if you want to, but you can also send you can call multiple functions together and not wait for it. It's just a good way for making your code better and faster. Because when you write complex programs, you need to make sure that you're calling multiple functions together and extracting the data from the backend so that your program is faster. So yeah, so it calls the get mood functions. It waits for it because we want to, but you know the secret, right? You don't have to wait for it. But yeah, we're waiting because we're beginners and we're writing console.log mode. Then set mode is basically what it's trying to do is like it's going to get the element by ID mode. What is this ID, right? Okay, so this we understand now. So it's calling the contract. It's waiting for the contract's promise, and then it's consoling down. For the set mode function, it's getting the value of the mode by the ID, and this ID is this ID, right? You remember this input we created? This had the ID mode. So boom, this is how we do it in HTML. You can hover over it and see it says element ID string, and then it returns you the value. So the value it's going to return, the value is going to be the mood, the text you wrote in that input field. And then you're going to call the set mode in the contract, again using the ABI and this instance that we created. And the input value of the text you have, you set it here, and you again wait for it, right? I hope you understand what's happening here. But yeah, so get element by ID. I remember a few days ago some student asked what this is. It's basically to get the value that you wrote this input thing, right? You need to get, because you can have multiple inputs, so you need to know which one, and that's what ID is used for. You tell them, okay, I need the input within this ID, right? Awesome. So if you go to localhost now and you refresh, browser sync connected, okay. Okay, see it says connected, boom. This means a good sign. It means a good sign. Okay, we're gonna open our console. I'm not sure if you guys know what this console is. It's very good. So you go here, you go more tools, and then you go developer tool. I use the shortcut, that's why it magically opened up, but you can just go here, then more tools, and then developer tools, okay? And then you need to go to this tab here. It's the console. List account is not functioning. It already gives me an error, so that's a good sign. It's not list account because I have multiple accounts, so it should be list accounts. Okay, awesome, and it automatically refreshes it. This is amazing, right? And everything it does, awesome, so beautiful. Like it automatically detects everything is done for us. The magic behind this beautiful world that we live in. But yeah, look for any errors there are in the console. It would help you to debug. So I'm gonna say happy now because I already set my mode as good. So I'm gonna call get mode and boom. See how it was working in Remix? It's doing the same thing, right? So Remix was doing all these things for us behind the back, but we didn't know, right? We didn't know that it was doing this, right? All like, it's creating this instance, it was getting the ABI, all this it was doing behind the back. It was calling this to figure out the injected provider and everything. And yeah, so easy, right? So Remix was actually doing all this for us meanwhile. So I do the confirm thing. I think I clicked it quite, but that's fine because I rejected it. But see how nice it is. It figures out I rejected it, but I have one transaction. Okay, so set mode. Oh, sorry. Okay, let me just set it again. Okay, I think it's predicting the gas, and gas is behaving a little bit wacky right now. Okay. Alright, so calls the setMood function.
I heard you ask for, but I can't find that name in your contacts. Do you have their phone number?
Sorry, that was my Alexa. Alright.
I heard you ask for, but I can't find that name in your contacts. Do you have their phone number?
Sorry. Okay, nice. See, alright, we have the mood set here, and it's on the console, and yep, this is it. But I hope you understand what we are doing here. I hope you understand what is happening here. Yeah, I know, right, Alexa? But yeah, you just click on happy, and my mood is set here. It's a very simple app, but I hope you understand it's not that simple. It's not that simple. It's very, it's very, it's lots of things are happening behind, but they have made this amazing infrastructure for us to work, and yeah, this is, they have made this amazing infrastructure for us to make it so simple, right? See how much is happening behind the scene, how much people are developing, that it has become so easy for you to just, in some simple lines of code, you can basically interact with the blockchain. How amazing it is, right? So I hope you understand why and what behind everything here, and yeah, Jeff Bezos is happy. but I'm happier. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. And yeah, this is it. I'm gonna wait for 2 minutes. Let's see what time it is. I'm sorry, I went a little bit overboard. Could you please explain that instance part of mood contract? Okay. Alright, yeah, for sure. Alright, so are you talking about this one? Alright. So Ethers has this function called as contract, right? And what it does is, like, it has all these functions inside the contract instance, which can make it easy for you to call the functions inside the API. So let me make this a little bit more clear. Okay, so your API is this, even though it's a little bit simpler, it's still complicated, right? You can't just do this. You need to have some way to make this even a little bit less complicated. Because, well, you have this API, but it's still complicated to call this, right? So how do we do this? So internally, when you declare this contract function, Ethers gives you this instance which is called mood contract, which makes it easier for you to call this get mood. So it does all the decoding for you. It figures out, okay, this is the input, this is the output. It figures it out, and then it gives you this nice syntax of calling get mood using this instance. That's what it means. That it does all the job for you. So when you create this contract, it basically does all the job for you to convert this little complicated ABI into even more easier for you to call, right? It makes this ABI, which is a little bit more like funky looking, into something which is very easy and something which we do in Web2 every day, that is calling functions. So who does that, right? So this Ethers, when you call this contract, it behind the scene does this for you. This is what makes it so easier for you to like just do get moved. Just call it like this, right? This instance helps you do that. This is what Ethers does behind the back. It attaches a signer to it, it attaches an API to it, an address, and it does it using its code that it has written. That's why it's like easy for you to call this function so easily, right? I hope it makes sense. Do you guys have any other questions? I'm sorry if I'm looking at that side because I'm looking for any questions. If you have any, please let me know. And this is it. I created this with you guys. I hope you understand. Awesome. Okay. I see the chat now. Does anybody else have any questions? So what are the downsides of using CDN compared to installing everything with NPM? Are there any instances where using CDN is not appropriate? I mean, are there any instances where using CDN is not appropriate? The thing is, like, when you compile the code, right, like when you do npm run build or you do yarn run build, what is it doing, like behind the scenes, right? It is doing this. It's creating the file, like it can create a minified file, or it can create a smaller version of the file. So it is trying to create something which is minified. So both have their advantages. Like the reason why people have started using like npm packages and everything is because it's easier to understand, right? Like for example, if you look at this, what is this, right? You can't understand anything. What's going on in this package? So if you're trying to understand their code, it's just like literally impossible for you to like figure out what's happening. But why people install these libraries and they do it is because, yeah, if you look at this, right, it maybe this is not the right one, but any other one, like let me type anything. Okay, URL friendly. So it gives you these functions and you can actually look into what's happening, right? Like if you click on this, it can give you the complete information about what is happening inside the function, and it's easier to read, to understand, and then you can have have different versions, you can switch to different versions, and it's easier for the developer to understand what's happening behind the code, because honestly it's just impossible to read this, what is happening inside. But like when you build, it does convert it to a minified file, but yeah, for readability and stuff, people nowadays prefer to just write libraries and use libraries so that they can understand the code behind what's happening in the library. Hope to see more. Yeah, we're gonna have sessions for everything. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it can be done similarly using Web3 JS. Web3.js was just introduced before Ethers.js, and Ethers.js has more functionality. So I would not suggest using Web3.js anymore, but you can do it if you want to, right? And I think we're good. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop streaming. Hope you guys have a nice day.